Right, we're going to move on a little bit, and this is what your guideline document says. It says that you have to tabulate anatomical differences between the African apes and humans. So we've looked at everything that we share with the African apes. So what makes us different from the African apes? And we have to look at bipedalism. We've already said the only two things that distinguish us is the bipedalism. We are bipedal. We walk on 2 feet. And with that, we have to look at things that points out that we are bipedal. We have to look at the foramen magnum, the spine, and the pelvic girdle. And we have to look at I think Lorraine already referred to the brain size, even though that a gorilla's brain might be bigger. It's all about also sizes.
Of specific parts of the brain.
That's right.
We have a big frontal lobe.
We look at teeth, the prognathus, the palate, and the cranial and brow ridges. That is what you have to know. That is prescribed in your guideline document. So if you're being asked a question on it, you have to refer to these things.
And Lance, to answer your question, yes, you have to be able to tabulate the differences as shown in this list. So you have to say for locomotion that humans are bipedal and the other primates are quadrupedal. You have to say that with the foramen magnum, that with humans, it's more to under the skull or to the front under the skull, and with the other primates more to the back of the skull, etc. So that list was the list of characteristics that you have to be able to compare. You might be asked to compare specifically just the results of walking upright. And then, as Colin has said, it's about the foramen magnum, the shape, the form of the spine, and the pelvic girdle. And there was actually a question like that in the senior certificate exams that were written now in May and June, in other words, for adult education. Or you have to, they will tell you to compare 3 characteristics. Now, let's have a look at the characteristics that you have to compare. The first one.
They also must remember that the amount of marks that is allocated to human evolution itself, is 44.
Yeah.
So it's 44 marks. So
out
you
of
have
66,
to,
I think, yeah.
Yes, the others is natural selection and speciation.
So you can expect a lot of questions. And this is one of the big sort of issues in human evolution, is how do, you see, there's no Ardipithecus or Australopithecus individuals still walking around. They've died out long ago. We only have the fossils. So we have to learn from the fossils what the differences are. And that is why you can expect to get questions on the skull, the cranium, the foramen magnum, the dentition, the pelvis, the spine, etc. So let's have a look at the first lot of differences.
Right, there you see the position of the foramen magnum. They definitely, and if you know that this is the skull from the bottom, seen from the bottom, and also the other thing that we have to point out, if they give you a frontal view, you can't mention the foramen magnum. You can only see the foramen magnum from the bottom of the skull. And this is the position, or this is the entrance of your spinal cord that goes and connects up with the brain, and the position says that people or humans must be able or must walk upright, because to keep the weight of their head on the spine. And so there you can see, and here you can see, so it's upright. Here this is the skull of a chimp, and the chimpanzee, you can see it's right at the back. Why? To keep the weight, the front part of this skull is so heavy, to keep that also upright, but to show also that this is a quadrupedal organism, because it does not walk upright all the time. That doesn't mean if you see that a chimp comes up on 2 legs, they don't move on 2 legs all the time. They are on 4 legs all the time. Look at the size of the pelvis. So take them through the pelvic girdle.
Yeah, with the pelvic girdle, very important, they can ask you differences. Now on the left we have the pelvis of a chimp, and on the far right that of a human, in the middle the Australopithecus. And you can see there's progress. if they ask you the difference, then you have to say with the human pelvis that it's shorter and wider. You can't just say it's wider or shorter or flatter. You have to give a comparison. So it's shorter than that of the chimpanzee, and it's also wider. On the chimpanzee side, you will have to say it's narrower, and longer. So when you explain this, if we look at the shape of the spine, that of the human is S-shaped or much more curved, while that of a chimpanzee, a quadrupedal primate, is more or less, it's a flat C-shape, much less curved. Colin, just one last thing. We refer to the teeth, the dentition. Remember, dentition means the teeth. Let's have a look at the teeth of those top skulls.
I think we have one. If we just
Oh,
go
you're
to the
sorry
next,
that.
yeah.
Sorry, I missed that. So let's.
So yeah,
Okay,
just to show.
question.
Yeah, there's questions, and you can see they will give you the drawings. That is more or less so that you can identify a narrower and a broader or wider pelvis. So then you just have to answer, and then advantages of bipedalism. We'll get to that now. We'll get to the dentition now, the brain size. Please, if we look, and we can just have that again, if we ask the brain size, the size of the brain is hosted in the cranium. So we refer to the cranium. We can't look at the whole skull and say that because of the skull that's so big, this chimp has a bigger brain. You can see that the cranium that hosts is much bigger than the cranium of the chimp, and it hosts a bigger brain, and this is why we can see that it has increased over time. There's a little question that is here in red, and this was not too long ago in an exam paper, and it says, explain the significance of the characteristic of the skull which allowed for the development of the ability to use tools in the Homo species.
And it's a long sentence, so just a tip for the exam. When you get a question like this, that it's a long sentence and you find it difficult to read, or you think you lose track halfway through the question, take your ruler, your pencil, draw circles around keywords, underline. But this is about the change in the skull, which allowed for the development of the ability to use tools in the Homo species. Now, to be able to use tools, you need to have certain brain ability. You need to be intelligent. And in order to be intelligent, and specifically the frontal lobe, your brain needs to be bigger. And in order to have a bigger brain, you need a bigger brain box, or the cranium. So what is the answer? The characteristic of the skull is that the cranium is bigger, it increased in size, so that it could host or accommodate a larger brain, which led to more intelligence and the ability to make and use tools. Okay, next one.
There we have.
You've got it.
So you've waited so long, so just get it done.